I teach philosophy here at Loyola. I teach all levels of philosophy, from freshman introduction to philosophy, all the way up to doctoral students and PhD students. So I'm teaching people that are usually roughly from about the age of 18 all the way up to the age of, I have a student who is 65 right now. Okay, so everything in between. What we're going to do today is I'm going to give you a taste for what an introduction to philosophy class is like. So the class that we'll be running today is the kind of philosophy class that everyone who is an undergraduate student at Loyola has to take. It's a requirement, okay? It's called part of the core curriculum, which means that whether you're a biology major or a chemistry major or an engineering major or a literature major or a computer science major, no matter who you are, you have to take this class, okay? Most Loyola undergraduate students will take it during their first, maybe their second year. The idea is that you take your core curriculum requirements in your first or second year of university, and then you move on to do the requirements of the courses within your major field of study. So this is the kind of setup that I would typically put on the board. I start out with administration. These are the logistical details of the class that have to do with class organization, class structure. I'll remind people of things that are due, such as their homework, assignments. I'll put reminders for upcoming tests here. I thought about putting a reminder for a test next class up here just to scare you guys. I didn't do it. Today, the homework that was due today was a reading entitled How to Read Philosophy by David Concepcion. Oh, I spelled his name wrong. Hold on. Concepcion. Yeah. Any Spanish speakers here? Yeah, Concepcion, right? Did I say it right? Okay, good. David Concepcion, How to Read Philosophy. This is typically the first reading that I give my Introduction to Philosophy class. There are discussion questions, which I understand you all did for homework today, yes? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. So that'll be the place where we pick up our discussion of the reading. I remind the class what's due next class. Typically, our first philosophically substantive reading is by Plato. No one's ever heard of him before.
Me.
I'm kidding. Oh. You all should have heard of Plato. Okay. He's what American college students usually associate with philosophy is old Greek dudes with beards. In other words, the opposite of me. Yeah. Right? Okay? So, but that's where we start, because that's where the Western philosophical tradition starts. Okay? So we start with Plato, the dialogue Euthyphro. It's a short reading with the same kinds of discussion questions that you all had for homework last night. Okay? Well, then we usually do a quick review. The way that I start out my courses is we talk about the question, what is philosophy? Because not everyone is on the same page with respect to what philosophy is. Okay? Does anyone know anything about the etymology of the word philosophy? It's from the Greek. Okay? It's from Greek. Does anyone know what the word means?
Wisdom.
Wisdom. Excellent. That's great. So look at this word. Philo, Sophie. Sophia. Sophia means wisdom in Greek, okay? So this is from the Greek Sophia. Oops, Sophia. Sophia means wisdom in Greek. What about philo? Anyone know? Philo from Greek. There's a city in the United States called Philadelphia. Philadelphia. Love of Delphi, right? Philadelphia. Love of city of brotherly love. Delphi is city. Philo is love. Excellent. Okay? Philosophia. Love. Sophia is wisdom. Okay? So philosophy literally means love of wisdom. Love of wisdom. So it's a very high and mighty goal that we have set for ourselves in philosophy, to cultivate the love of wisdom. That's what the discipline is about. Okay? It's a very noble goal, I think. It's a worthy goal to cultivate the love of wisdom. But then, over the years, people have developed certain stereotypes about philosophy. People have certain popular ideas about what philosophy is, who philosophers are, what they write, what they read, what they look like, and there are all different sorts of ideas about this. So I'm interested in hearing from you guys, what are some stereotypes or ideas or conceptions or associations that you all have with the word philosophy? Okay? Just shout them out. Shout them out for me. What is the first thing that comes into your head when you hear the word philosophy? Free association. Yeah.
Talking too much.
Talking too much. Good. I talk a lot. It's true. Okay. This one doesn't work. Oh, too bad. It's my favorite color. All right. So, some stereotypes associated with philosophy. Talking too much. What else?
Talk deeply.
Sorry?
Deeply.
Thinking deeply.
Yeah. Think
Okay.
deeply.
All right. Thinking deeply. Excellent. What else?
Different opinions.
Different opinions? Yeah.
Argument.
Okay. Differing opinions. Differing opinions. Good. What else?
Discussions about the world.
Okay. Discussions about the world. Any particular aspect of the world that you have in mind?
Creation.
Okay. Discussions of the origin.
Origin.
Yeah. The origin of the world. Good. What else?
Fact.
Sorry?
Fact.
Facts.
Fact.
Fact. Okay. So
Argument.
the way things are. Yeah. Facts. Yeah, go ahead.
Describe.
Facts and descriptions. I think those two go together. Yeah, good. Facts and descriptions. These are better associations than American students have.
That's good.
Okay, what else?
Characters.
Say that again.
Characters.
Characters. What kind of characters?
Like authors or like important people.
Oh, like authors.
Yeah.
Philosophers. Okay. Who? Who in particular?
Voltaire.
Voltaire. Très bien.
Socrates.
Okay, Socrates.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Socrates, yeah, it's good one.
Voltaire. Who else?
Plato.
Plato. That's cheating. His name's already up there. Okay. What else? Come on.
Thinking too much.
Thinking too much. Talking too much. Thinking too much. Any other
Descartes.
yeah,
Descartes.
Descartes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Descartes.
I speak French, so that's why I have my Descartes. Yeah. Who else? Philosophers that you read in your home country. Give me some names. Victor Hugo. C'est un littéraire quand même. Yeah, more novelist, right? Who else?
You knew about
Al-Ghazali? Anyone?
Ghazali.
Al-Ghazali, okay. Al-Kindi? Okay, who else?
Aristotle.
Huh?
Aristotle.
Aristotle! Very good. Okay, excellent. Okay, you guys know philosophers. You know who they are, yeah? The hard part is figuring out what they actually think. That's the hard part. The easy part is knowing their name. The hard part is working out the way that their arguments function. And this is what makes philosophy distinctive, okay? What philosophy is about, it's not just about thinking deeply, it's about thinking precisely, okay? It's a question of methodology. What's the methodology of philosophy? It's precise logic. That's the method.
If your phone rings, you must sing.
When the phone rings, I get to answer it. So whose phone is it? Yeah? Thank you. Oh, your person probably hung up, okay?
Yeah.
That's your reminder. That's your reminder to turn off your phones,
That's for my
okay?
rule.
So, 10 seconds to turn off your phones. Do it now.
Want me to turn off mine too?
Do it now. All right, done. You guys saw in my syllabus, no phones in my classroom, right? Yeah, everything's off. All electronics are off, okay? I have scientific studies that back me up on this. Everybody thinks that they can learn with their electronics on. The scientists say you're wrong. Okay, they say you're wrong. All right, Methodology. This is what distinguishes philosophers from other disciplines. It's a precise logic. Okay? It is not actually about opinion. What it is about are arguments. Yes? What's that?
Turn your head.
Yeah. It's about arguments. And I'm not talking about arguments in the sense of fighting, right? Or even verbally yelling at each other. Arguments is a line of reasoning. Okay? Line of reasoning. That's what an argument is. A line of reasoning. Okay? Good. So far, so good?
Yeah, it's great.
Okay, excellent. I think I've used up my first 10 minutes already, yeah?
You're doing great.
Okay. What the reading that you were assigned is designed to help you do is to turn you into an argument detective. Okay? The reading that I assigned to you is to help you become an argument detective. That's my personal phrase, okay? No one else in philosophy uses that phrase, but I think it describes what reading philosophy is like. Okay? When you are reading philosophy well, what you are doing is looking for clues. Right? You're looking for logical clues to tell you what are the main assumptions of the argument. Where does the argument begin? Right? What are the starting points of the argument? 2, how does the argument take those starting points and build on them? Right? What is the line of reasoning from the beginning of the argument through the middle and then finally to the conclusion? Okay? And here's a tip. The conclusion is usually the easiest thing to find. Right? The conclusion is almost always the easiest thing to find. The next easiest thing to find is the beginning of the argument. What are the starting points? What are the assumptions? What are the premises of the argument? Okay? Now the hard part comes in the middle, where you have to trace the logical steps from the beginning of the argument to the conclusion. And that's what philosophy is meant to train you how to do. Okay? So a good philosophy class will allow you to do all these things. It will allow you to think deeply. It will allow you to talk about the world. It'll allow you to talk about facts and descriptions. But there's a particular way in which you do it. Okay? You do it precisely. You do it with logic. You do it by identifying premises, tracing a line of argument, finally to a conclusion. Okay? So far, so good? Now, this is the way that I've just taught this bit of class for you guys is maybe a little bit dialed down from how I would normally teach it. But this is roughly the concepts that I would be presenting on the first day of class. Okay? And so now what I'm going to do is give you guys a more, what I'll call a meta discussion of the kinds of expectations that I would be outlining for my students. Actually, no, that's false. What I'll give you now is an outlining of the expectations that I will come to class already expecting of my students. Okay? So when I say, what do university professors expect here as the beginning of my presentation, what I mean is, what I'm getting ready to discuss with you guys are expectations that professors have even if they don't articulate them. Okay? So these are what I'll call implicit expectations. They will not necessarily be made explicit. You will not necessarily hear a professor tell you this stuff, which is why I'm telling you. Okay, so you can be prepared when you come into a university classroom as an undergraduate student on the first day of class. You know already what your professors are going to be expecting. Okay? Questions before we begin about anything that we've just talked about philosophy, anything like that? Yeah, go ahead.
What do you think about philosophy, and is it significant in our life?
Yeah,
Very
I mean, there are lots of, there are lots of politicians who think that philosophy should be done away with. The problem is that I think philosophy is part of what makes us human. And so if we do away with philosophy, it's going to be hard to distinguish us from robots or animals. because I think that loving wisdom is one of the uniquely human faculties and the uniquely human experiences of our lives. Animals don't love wisdom, robots don't love wisdom, humans do. And so I think if we eliminate the study of philosophy, we're eliminating one of the very foundational, very basic things of being human. Yeah, that's my answer anyway. That's the answer that I hope will help me keep my job. I'll just say. Okay, so what do university professors expect? This is me, I'm assistant professor of philosophy here at this lovely institution. My goal here is to help you guys hit the ground running. Okay, hit the ground running. That's an expression that means be prepared on the very first day that you get there. Okay, you're already ready to go. You're in advance of everyone else, right? If you can do these things. So here are some assumptions that university professors will make about you before you even come into the classroom. There are certain assumptions that professors will make. Number one, they're going to assume that you have developed a certain level of maturity, okay? Not necessarily that you have acquired full and complete adult maturity, right? Because there are many students who are 18 or 19, so they're not fully developed adults yet. But they will assume, number one, a certain amount of personal maturity, okay? You signed up, you are mature enough to sign up for a university class. You are mature enough to hopefully do this without the help of your parents, right? You can take care of yourself in certain kinds of ways. You can be on time for things. You're capable of being on time for things. You're capable of turning work in on time, okay? If you say that you're going to do something, you do it, okay? These are sort of the basic elements of personal maturity that your professor is going to assume. Second, they're going to assume a certain amount of social maturity, okay? You don't blurt out inappropriate things in class, right? You greet people kindly and respectfully. You are able to have a civil and kind discussion with people that you might disagree with, okay? You're able to be respectful in that kind of an environment. And that's what I mean by social maturity, okay? Third, there's a certain kind of moral maturity that you have, okay? Even though we can acknowledge the fact that there's widespread moral disagreement about certain features of right and wrong, nevertheless, there's a certain understanding that cheating in an academic environment is completely out of bounds, okay? Cheating is immoral in an academic environment. Stealing is immoral in a kind of academic environment, okay? Bribery is immoral in an academic environment, okay? Any kind of quid pro quo, that's a really important phrase, quid pro quo. Any kind of trade or bribery is out of bounds, okay? That's immoral. So that's what I mean when I say that your professors are going to assume a certain kind of moral maturity, okay? And then finally, intellectual maturity. What that means is you are able to stay with an idea for as long as it takes to understand it, okay? You don't give up if something's hard, right? You turn the idea around in your head. You chew on it. You digest it. You talk with other people about it. You seek help and different perspectives about it, right? You read competing points of view on it. Okay? That's what intellectual maturity is. It's the ability to hold in your mind two competing ideas and entertain them both seriously. All right? That's intellectual maturity. It has to do with being able to think carefully and not giving up. If you don't make sense of something the first time, you stick with it. Okay? So those are the kinds of assumptions about maturity that your professors are going to make before you even walk in the classroom, right? And then finally, there's certain assumptions about skills that you have, that your professors will assume that you've already got by the time you walk in to their classroom. Number one, perfect grammar and spelling.
Whoa, really?
I didn't say that these assumptions are warranted. I just said that this is an assumption, right? The assumption is you have learned this in high school already, right? Because they pay me the small bucks, not the big bucks, but they pay me the small bucks not to teach grammar, but to teach philosophy, right? So when you turn in a philosophy paper and there are so many grammar and spelling errors that I can't understand the content, right, the concepts of the paper, then I actually can't help you with the philosophical part of it because I don't know what it says, right? So that's why grammar and spelling is so important. It's not important for its own sake. It's important because this is what allows you to communicate the concepts and the arguments and to think precisely. Because remember, for philosophers, what's important is precision, okay? So the more precise your language, the more precise this is, the more precise your argument can be. Right? Does this make sense? So the precision, yes, Ms. Miller?
Oh, can you explain the word precise?
I can absolutely explain the word precise, okay? Precise means to say exactly and only what you mean. Okay? It is unambiguous. There is only one way to interpret what you mean. Okay? So it's very much like if you think of your words as tools in a toolbox, right? Think of a toolbox. There are all kinds of different tools in that toolbox. Your job when you're writing a philosophy paper, or really any kind of paper, is to make sure that whatever the idea is that's in your head, you choose exactly and only the right tool to communicate that, okay? You would not choose a hammer to work with a screw. It wouldn't work, right? You need not just, and to work with that screw, it's not good enough to just choose any old screwdriver, because you guys know there are two kinds of screwdrivers, right? There's the flathead and the Phillips head, okay? You need to choose exactly the right screwdriver to get that screw in there, okay? It's not enough to just say, oh, I'll just grab that one, that looks right. You need exactly the right one for the job. That's what precision is, okay? It's choosing the exact right tool for the job, okay? And the more precise the ideas are in your head, the more important it is that you have very precise tools in your word toolbox to be able to communicate the precision of those ideas. Okay, is this making sense to you guys? Okay. You can tell philosophers are very exact, right? We're very precise, okay? So that's why grammar and spelling is important. It's not important for its own sake. It's important for the sake of precision. Okay, that's why it's important. Proficient written and verbal expression. Now, no one's expecting you to be Victor Hugo, okay? That's not what we're looking for. But we do assume that you have a basic ability to communicate yourself, to communicate your ideas, to communicate and express yourself. Okay, and this is true not just in writing, but also in speaking. You guys noticed I was asking you lots of questions at the beginning of class, right? You need to be able to express yourself. It's understood that your verbal expression will not always be as precise as your written expression, but nevertheless, you need to be able to start developing those tools that you can reach for, not just when you're writing, but also when you're speaking. Okay? And then similarly, you're going to need to be proficient in reading comprehension. Now, this reading that you guys had from last night is about the easiest level of reading comprehension that you would encounter in my class, okay? So this is probably the easiest thing that my philosophy students would read. So one of my jobs as a philosophy professor is to take people from being proficient at reading this to eventually being proficient at reading something like Plato or Voltaire, okay? Which is a level of difficulty much higher, okay? That's much more difficult. And then finally, proficient study skills. This is connected up to intellectual maturity, right? If you are proficient with study skills, what that means is that you are good at estimating how much time it will take for you to read a particular assignment, or for you to write a kind of paper. You have the discipline that it takes to be able to sit down, read through something, think through it, write something about it, and you have the technological capability to be able to submit it on time, proofread it, and do all of this in such a way that it doesn't negatively affect anyone else, right? One thing to keep in mind is that poor planning on your part does not constitute an emergency for the professor, okay? What that means is that it is on you to plan ahead, to section out your time appropriately, section out your energy appropriately, and very basic things like get the appropriate amount of sleep, right? Engage in good nutrition, right? Eat healthy food. These are things that college students tend to forget affect your ability to learn in the classroom, but in fact they have a very big impact on your ability to learn in the classroom. So good nutrition is important, exercise is important, sleep is important. Okay? These are the things that form the kind of foundation of your learning, right? The sort of physical factors that affect how well you're able to engage in these activities. So questions on this slide so far? Yeah.
Is there any American student has a problem with grammar and spelling?
Sorry, with what?
Grammar and spelling?
Oh yeah, they do, for sure. But the way to think about grammar and spelling is to think of it as a constant upward spiral, right? Everyone is starting at a different level on the spiral, but everyone is going to the same place, which is the precise articulation of your conceptual arguments, right?
What kind of grammar and spelling mistakes do you find in your?
Do I often
Yeah.
find?
do you find?
The most common one is, I would say, a run-on sentence.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
the most common one. That's very difficult to parse because if a student is writing a run-on sentence, the chances are good that they, not just that they're running together the ideas in their sentence, but it's actually a symptom of the fact that they're running together the ideas in their head
Yeah.
as well,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
So the way that I think about writing is it's a mirror of the ideas that are in your head. And you want that mirror to